Well, so good evening, everybody. First of all, I just want to say I'm so happy to be here with Frank and Larry. So happy everybody is here too. The book that's over there next to us is a fruit of love. Like, we've been working on this book for about 3 years now, and you have a sort of a whole, it encompasses all of Larry's career, basically, up to today. And the book, I just want to say one thing is the person who published the book was just passed away recently. His name was Bob Abrams. So I just want to say, I wish he was here with us tonight. He's one person missing from this evening. And then I don't expect to do much talking tonight. I have these two young men here who are going to do much better than me at it. And I have a few photos, images that are ready for us to look at. If, I don't know, I think you guys are better off than me speaking. So,
I don't have any higher register in my ears. The highs.
Yes.
Right,
so
I get the bases, but I don't catch.
So you didn't hear anything I said just now, which is very good. I'm glad you didn't hear anything I said right now. So.
Really. Well, Cezanne only painted when it was cloudy out, for some reason.
Larry, do you want to use the microphone?
Sure.
So, okay, this is a picture of the two of you from 1967. Okay.
Michael Fried wrote a good thing about that photograph.
Yeah?
Well, a good short little concise essay. Yeah. He got a lot out of the clothes.
Can everybody hear?
That's where the message is.
Use your microphone, Larry. Use the microphone.
People aren't paintings. Yeah.
Speak with the microphone.
What, profundity? People aren't paintings?
No, they can't hear you in the back.
Oh, I hear you, yeah.
So, all right. What do you want? No, you use it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you guys recognize this photo?
Oh,
yeah, I'm looking at the sculpture, but the David Smith, but I can't tell what the black one is.
That's Bill Rubin's apartment.
Yeah, that part I know.
Can you tell us who's in the picture?
Yeah. So this young man is sitting right here. And this is Frank at the foreground. And you have Barbara Rose and Larry Poons. You were a little bit chubbier then.
Huh?
You were a bit chubbier then.
Yeah, I could walk through walls.
And, well...
And what? And Lucinda.
Lucinda Childs.
At the end, Lucinda Childs.
And there's one particular man over there sitting on the right with the mustache.
There's a what?
The man with the mustache over there.
Barney Newman.
Here. I think it would be interesting if you could talk to us about Newman and how his work had an influence on you when you were so young.
Well, what about Barney?
Use your microphone.
What about Barney?
Well, you admired him.
What I knew Barney a little bit. Yeah, which was generated by his show at French Company, and a short letter that I got out of Newsweek, an address, which I think the address was Front Street, downtown. And do I have to go through all this? Yeah. Oh, okay. But anyway, to make a long story short, he replied to the letter. I just said, I thought your show was great, like Beethoven, and about a month or two later, I got a phone call from him, come on up to a party I'm giving on West End Avenue, and the place was filled with some guys, figurative artists that actually taught here, Will Barnett. And then the whole room, these are just an ordinary apartment, you know, on West End Avenue. So it was unbelievably pretty nice because there were a lot of people there. But in the living room, there's a wall here and a wall here. Normal sized living room, you know, 15 feet, right? But on this wall was the big red painting that the Museum Modern Art has, and on this wall was Cathedra. So they had this red painting and blue painting, wonderful paintings, you know, and right there in his living room, you know. And then the party went on, lots of people. When everybody was leaving, I was leaving too, and Barney said, "Why don't you stay?" And so I said, "Sure." And so it ended up, it was just Barney, his wife, Annalie, and myself, and just sitting around drinking vodka, you know, eating celery, and you know, Barney's telling me how he wanted to be a composer and plays a little thing on the piano that he wrote, you know, and we're having an okay time, which was very nice. And so it went on, and for a while, and then I went home. Yeah. And he came down to the studio I had on 21st Street or 22nd Street, maybe about a month later, and I showed him rock and roll painting, and you know, and he looked at that and played some music for him, you know, and I mean, I played the guitar and sang for him, Solid Dog Blues, actually, and that was the first meet, second meet, actually. So he was a companion, a slap on the back companion. You know, he was right there, supportive with himself, you know, and supportive of me. Okay, that's enough. Yeah.
Well, so on the screen right now, there's a letter that you wrote to.
What?
There's a letter you wrote to Barney Newman on the screen. That's you reaching out to him when you were 19 years old. You told him that you wanted to meet him. But you guys had a start pretty much at the same time as when you were young artists. You started pretty much at the same time.
Frank was ahead of me, you know, like in his painting. You know, and he, that's all I can say. He was further along with this painting, you know, looking at what happened than I was, but not by that much.
Turning for home, what happened? Oh, I forgot it. And turning for home, what happened? It was pretty much a dead heat. No pun intended. But Barney was pretty good with everybody. I mean, I don't know how he managed to stay friendly with. I can't think of any young artist that didn't like Barney. I mean, on a really warm kind of personal level, and I don't see how they could have liked his paintings that much. But I mean, that's something else. but leaving that aside, Barney's feeling about the community, as they call it, and about what was going on was always, you know, very open and very enveloping. Is that a word? But and very unforced, because Barney, nothing was ever forced for Barney, because that's the way the world was, which was the way he said it. And so, but that was fine.
Very much so. He was fun to be around. He liked to laugh. Yeah, he had a great laugh. Yeah. He always had something to say. Yeah. That's the show at Yares, right?
So a couple of years ago, we had a show at the gallery, which is not far from the League here, a few blocks away on Fifth Avenue, and we decided to show early works, sort of the beginning for Frank and Larry, along with their most recent works, which are so different. They are pretty much 60 years apart. So there you go. You have Frank's works on the right, and then two of Larry's paintings on the left. So, and I'm just curious, Frank, like as far as Barnett Newman, for you, did he have an influence on your work as well?
Yes, I mean, it was pretty much a kind of straightforward, overwhelming influence. The show that Larry mentioned at French and Company was sort of pretty much it. That you didn't have to worry about anything about what art was about or what the scene was or any of those things. There you had a simple, straightforward exhibition of large paintings, actually, a large number of paintings that were, that was it. You had to do something that related to them in some way. It wasn't like there was a choice. If you didn't understand those paintings, and if those paintings didn't relate in some way to what you were trying to do, then there was something wrong. And the chances are it was wrong with you.
Yeah, like, I was plotting stuff on graph paper, moving a point around the paper, clockwise, counterclockwise, like 4 points within a square, and then going around 64 squares on a square. And I'm making these lightning bolt shape. When I connected the lines, it come out like this lightning bolt stuff, like red, and I did it in red and green. And
like that.
Yeah.
That's an example.
Oh, I wonder who owns that painting.
That's Frank's painting. Yeah.
What a
It's a
surprise.
painting I always liked because it reminded me of those gestures with pointy shoes in Italy. Yeah.
The drawing that you showed, or the drawings on graph paper with the dots placed, you probably won't remember that I came into the Green Gallery when they had a show, and there were some drawings up, and I was with my father, and you came over and you started to explain the placement of the dots to my father.
It's so simple. People could fall down on the floor cross-legged.
Right, that's what he said. He said, why is he trying to tell me the difference between an arithmetic and a geometric progression?
But, so anyway, I wanted to get bigger. I wanted to get more like Newman. Like the whole thing was like hearing a Beethoven symphony all at once, So Henry Geltzaler, I was telling Henry Geltzaler about my woe, and I was saying, well, what do you think I would do, Henry? He said, keep it simple. So then I thought, I won't connect the points anymore, I'll just paint the points. So how I put the points there simply became points, and I figured out the size would be 56 inches, so pennies looked about right. So I did the grid, put the pennies flat on the ground where the spray paint would, mask out the dots, you see. And the fun part was when it was all dry, you lift it up and all the pennies would go clinking down on the ground, right? But then you had these nice clean circles. And from then on, it became not just the task, just what you want to do is paint the dots. And so when the dots finally looked okay, I try to leave it alone. That's about it. It's the first dot picture. And then somebody came to Dick Bellamy, they came down, and he took the first dot picture up, and like 20 seconds later, he'd sold it, right? Said, well, now I can get big like Barney. So I went from 56 to 80 inches, right? And that became the Enforcer painting. It was that, there was no in between. It went from there to there to there to there, and it stood up to Frank's painting that Dick Bellamy put next to it. They both held their own. So that was terrific for me. I mean, I felt great. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the whole story of that beginning. Yeah.
So the enforcer is up on the screen.
Well, the first painting was called Cripple Creek.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the enforcer, as you mentioned.
Which one's that?
This is the enforcer.
Okay. Yeah. The two paintings look great together, I remember.
Well, here's a little bit before.
Oh, well, that's before any of what I've just told you about sort of geometric progression paintings, which I never wanted them to look like so-called hard-edge paintings that I would see in Europe or anything. And luckily they didn't, you know. I mean, I just did my thing and, you know, and can you see that? Yeah, that's a nice painting. I wish I knew where it was.
It's
Yeah. So that's a studio on Maiden Lane I had downtown. Yeah.
so. Well, that would have been.
Why is it so dark?
This is one of Frank's. I just wanted to go back a bit, and that's one of
Yeah,
Frank's earlier paintings, 1958, which is about the same period as the one I just showed of yours. Here's a picture of you at work.
And that's a studio on that Church Street opposite the telephone building. You know, in those days, you got 4 floors for like $175 a month or something like that. So I had the whole building from the ground floor to the top floor. So that sort of had paintings going in 2 or 3, could have paintings going a lot, right? And this all happened quick, yeah. And
Okay.
Frank's studio was just down the road. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Walker Street.
right, exactly, yeah.
I forgot the microphone. Yeah, Walker Street. Just walk down around 6th Avenue.
Yeah.
Larry was around.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you both, actually, and then you can talk with each other. And
Right.
I don't necessarily need to look at all the photos, but I feel like from the beginning, both of you made paintings that didn't necessarily look like paintings, if you know what I mean. Like they weren't like what a painting was supposed to be, or even today, you know.
Yeah, but Larry said it pretty clearly when we saw the paintings just before that, you know, there was the echo of geometric paintings from Europe, and that was it. And then you related to that no matter how much you related to the paintings in America and what was going on. It was a question of somehow being in there and not drifting over. Trying to stay on your side of the Atlantic.
I felt those geometric paintings were the only paintings I could paint. So that's another story. Yeah.
But then it didn't stay like that. You didn't keep on making geometric paintings.
Yeah. Well, when I was up in Boston, I decided I wanted to maybe come to New York to show in the Village Art Show. And so I took the canvas boards and came down on a bus and got in the show in the Village and set up the paintings. And a fellow next to me during the show said, "Your paintings are neoplastic." I'd never heard that word before. We became friends. He was a geometric painter too. And he told me about a book about Mondrian, and so I went out and got it, you know, and so I was off, yeah. But I started off more or less geometrically because I felt I could do that. You know, I think painting becomes a matter of becomes a very it is a very personal matter whether you like it or not, you know, and or whether you want it or not, you know. Yeah. So you do what you can do, and also what you're encouraged to do, you know, by the paintings themselves, you know, and everything comes into play. You know, the sponge called our humanity takes it all in. You know, I mean, it does. We're not filters, we're sponges. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Is that funny? Yeah.
No, I like it. We're sponges. Yeah, but I wanted to show also like how, or to talk about, or you to talk about how you got into this more, however you want to say, organic way of painting.
That happened with Brown Sound, the picture Brown, you know.
Right. Here's a similar painting.
Yeah.
To Brown Sound, yeah.
Is that Brown Sound?
That's another painting, but
no,
it's
that's
similar.
another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another painting like that.
So wait, what made you change your style? How come you changed from painting out of seeing what Newman was doing, seeing what Mondrian was doing?
I didn't see what he was doing. It was just feeling it. You know? Seeing is easy. Feeling is very, very personal, which is not so easy. You know, because it is personal, not by will, but by nature. You don't decide these things. You know, nature does.
Well, even your dot paintings that are...
The what?
Even the dot paintings that are very...
The dots?
Yes.
They did what I could do. I could change the color of the dots until it looked okay. It never looked okay just painting green in there or whatever color was going to be once. It just didn't look right, you know, and it became painting for me very, you know, very close, but the layout and the color, the way it would work, got big, you know, and, you know, I mean, bigger. It didn't go into itself, it came out. You know, it's like when Frank started to take the corners off some of his pictures, you know, that's when they lit up for me, you know, as
that's one of them.
Yeah.
But I would say the thing about these pictures that both of you made in those years, they can seem so rigid and so simple in a way and so geometric, but they have a life. There's something about them that isn't steady, or...
There's nothing simple about wanting what you can't see. There's nothing simple in that, because if I knew what I wanted to see, just paint it, you know, the way you want to see it. But it just doesn't work that way. You know, vision doesn't work that way. Color doesn't work that way. Notes on a piano don't work that way. We all have the same amount of notes on the piano. Why can't any of us make notes, or just simple notes, as good as Mozart, you know? Or why can't we all paint pictures as good as Cézanne's? You know, everybody painted landscapes in those days. Why do they look so wonderful? His paintings of landscapes, you know? And everybody else, okay, you know?
This painting was in the show, the first show that I had at Leo's gallery. I had already shown black paintings, actually, at a museum and some other places. But this show was sort of what I wanted to do. And I had been worrying about it or working on it for a long time. And I didn't have any thoughts about it. But when Adolf Gottlieb came to see the show, he told someone, I don't know exactly, anyway, he didn't like the show. Now that's no big deal that an artist wouldn't like younger artist show. But in my case, it was a big deal because Adolf had explicitly chosen a painting of mine, a black painting, to be in a show down on 23rd Street there with the, I don't know if it's 23rd, so whatever, at the Art Students League. And so I thought, you know, the audience for what you do is always something that you don't know anything about. I mean, how was I to know what Adolf Gottlieb really thought about what I did? And how would I know what a curator might think or a critic? But, you know, when Adolf Gottlieb didn't like this painting, which I liked a lot, it was pretty crushing. And the part that I didn't understand was, it's not that I was unhappy. I was simply unhappy that it didn't work for him. And it's though I did something wrong, really wrong. And then I had to worry about what I was doing, not only for myself, which I, you know, might not have been that good or was going somewhere, maybe hopefully better, but then I had to worry about dragging Adolf with me. Anyway, it turned out okay.
Okay, here's a funny thing. I'm going to show you something. Yeah. All right. Well, we can talk about this. You guys have. So here's Larry, and wait.
I was trying to get past Don there, and
Here's Frank. Okay.
he got so crazy I hit his leg, you know, but I didn't knock him down, and I didn't get past him, but I was trying. I mean, you know, racing's just racing's racing. That's all. You can't talk about it. You can't think about it. You got to do it, which is close to painting in that way. You got to do it. You know, yeah. And then things are real because it's happening. Yeah. I'm thinking about it.
So you both have you both have a taste for speed and racing.
I don't know. It's not so much speed. It's the feel.
Frank,
it's the feel of it when you're actually into. It's actually happening. You know, it's not fast. If it gets fast, something's wrong. And I know you might not understand that, but it's true. Meaning, if it got scarier, the faster you went, racing wouldn't exist. You know, people wouldn't want to fucking do it. But it's just the opposite. I mean, in the sense, with our nervous systems, it's not that. But the speed, when you get out of control, it's a moment of, it's so quick, you don't even realize it, but you do realize you're in dire need of saving, you know, and sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you fall down, you know, and you know, it's as much a part of the whole experience when it doesn't work as when it does work. Yeah, yeah. So that's why it was a fun thing for me to do for years and years and years. You know, I didn't do anything else except that and paint. Yeah, I mean, really, hang out at Max's, you know.
Max's Kansas City.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's all I can say I did. Yeah. Oh, there's a BMW.
All right, here's another. Well, so there's a picture of you, Frank, with the design you created for BMW.
This was popular with the people who paint the cars. But the most popular car that was painted was, of course, Andy's. But the painters hated it because they don't like their work to be seen as messy. And so this fit it was a much better fit for them to feel about what they did. Let's get some questions.
Yes, okay. So are there any questions?
Hey, Larry. Yeah, you know, you taught me about
cropping paintings back in the 1970s, you taught me, in the mid-1970s. But I never knew when you started to crop your paintings.
To crop the pictures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when did it
I
start?
started cropping when I was painting on the floor, and with liquid paint. So then the canvas was the length of the floor, and so like there'd be a lot of room for paint and color to, make it happen. And so cropping became what a lot of people I knew about cropping, but cropping became a need. And I remember, like, once my assistant and myself, Saito was my assistant, there was still water in the painting, on the floor, and we were cropping it anyway, right? And Saito's leaning over and said, "Cutting water," which is, it was nice. It was great of him to do that. But anyway, yeah. And so then cropping became a some kind of natural editing, and so things were cropped and cropped and cropped and cropped. The first throw painting happened in 1971, and the canvas was all, the canvas, I had decided to get off the floor and get around the wall. That happened happened very quickly, as things happen quickly that end up being those kinds of things, where we were cropping on the floor, Clement Greenberg, myself, and one other person. We were cropping on the floor, poor paintings, and making decisions, put lines down. And I had paintings stacked up in the corner covered in plastic, that when I had thrown the paint, they splattered up on the other plastic. And standing there with Clem, and Clem said, "Look at that." And, hey, I can get him up, and I can get some of the drawing, which I'm trying to do on the floor, by putting it upright and throwing it. So this picture became the first throw picture, and it ended up to be the whole world. Couldn't crop it. Nobody could crop it. The crop was leave it alone. Yeah.
Frank, you don't crop.
What?
I'm talking to Frank now. You don't.
I'm sorry, I don't crop, yeah.
No, I'm. It's a different way. It's a different way of thinking about the painting.
No, I don't know, because yes and no, depending on how much you do it or don't do it. It depends on what you're working on, when you're working, and some things get cropped, some things don't. I mean, if you have a plan and you want to stay within that, you just work within that. But if that's, the cropping usually takes place in your head. There's plenty of cropping there when you decide that.
I have a question for Frank. When I was a kid, like I was 16 years old, I was completely shocked and my life changed with a conversation with Stephen Green. Tell me about Stephen Green. He always used to brag that he was your teacher. And man, he blew my mind.
No, he was wonderful. I mean, teaching and, actually, this is an art school, right? I mean, so teaching happens here. But it's hard to say. I mean, after a certain point, you relate to teachers, to the teaching institutions, and then sometimes, and then almost everybody goes off on their own. But for a long time, or maybe when Larry and I came here, things had begun to change. I mean, people did get lucky in a certain sense and were able to manage and work and have a kind of career anyway, without being totally dependent on teaching. But that was what was given. I mean, nobody could imagine American painting in the 30s and 40s and 50s without teachers who were painters. And that's the way it was. Yeah, right. It wasn't that bad.
Frank, you were speaking earlier about potentially some feelings of doubt that creeped in when a prominent figure in the art world didn't like your piece. So I would love if you could speak about how you overcame those feelings of insecurity or those feelings of doubt at a young age in the art world. And Larry, if you would like to speak to that as well, I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Well, in my case, I just sort of worried about it and was sort of sad and everything, but I mean, you know, you don't have time to worry that much. When the teacher that you're working with doesn't like what you do, where do you go?
Okay, where do I go if what?
If your teacher,
I never had a teacher.
you never had a teacher.
No.
Okay. But that's okay.
I mean, not in the sense. No, I really didn't. When I went to school in Boston, I went to the Boston
Just
Museum
put to your mouth.
School. Yeah, and I enrolled, and I did my geometric paintings, and they showed one in the group show in the school, and my painting instructor asked me to come to his office. Oh, this is good, yeah. To come to his office, right? And so I didn't know what was going on. You know, so he was a Hollander, and he told me that he met Mondrian, right? And Mondrian had a piano, and he had a book of matches on the piano, and as Mondrian talked, he'd move the box around the piano as he talked, right? And in those days, we all wore dungarees, had hair out to here, you know, and looked the way we looked in the 50s, late 50s and 60s, right? And like, for most people, Slavs, you know. So he's telling me about this, and after that, I left his office. I'm walking down the hall, and I'm saying, you know, he was telling me that I'm too messy in my dress to paint like Mondrian. And I said, that's stupid. And so I stopped going to school. Because that's what I could do. I mean, at that time, I had a design teacher who, Stuart Davis has had a great painting up in the Museum of Modern Art called Ale, great big blue painting, wonderful. And I showed it to her, and she did something likewise. She said, oh, he designs just looking at television sets. So it was goodbye. You know, not because I disagreed with him, but because I thought they were just somewhere else than where I was. So, you know, it was from there to New York, yeah. After some more time in Boston, time with friends at Harvard, you know, but then I moved to New York, yeah. No, that's in Syracuse. That was a big wall they never could figure out what to do with, so it got cut up into little panels. Yeah. Yeah. That's throwing that slop on it, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was something you did with.
I've often thought I'd like to see that way again, but it'll never get there. Yeah.
So you did that in '76.
What?
You did that in 1976.
Who?
You.
There was 76 in Syracuse.
Syracuse,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's clay.
What?
It's clay. This is clay. Mud. Dirt.
What?
Dirt. Mud. Clay.
Yeah, clay. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. We've shown a lot of your early works for both of you. Okay, but I just wanted to get to.
Well, this is 76. I would have been throwing paint, you know, for 5 years.
Yes. But it seems that as time went by for both of you in your work, you moved towards more three-dimensional works, sculptural painting still, but very much out of, in space. Like, well, this. Well, like that's one of Frank's pieces from 91.
Yeah, I mean, the painting has to do something and go somewhere, and you find a way or a place where, you feel comfortable with it. And, or sometimes you feel very uncomfortable, which is not a great feeling, but you can be driven or taken to try something else, move to another place. So that's what happens a lot, I think, in painting. I mean, you just you run out of space at some point, and then you have to start making your own again.
Say, it's not a job because you're always fired, period.
Yeah, but this isn't so different from what we just saw in Larry's painting, one painting before or two. If you take one of the pieces, and when he's throwing the paint, when the paint hasn't gotten to the canvas yet, you see some of those shapes.
Like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, like, one color at a time. But then started throwing more different colors. And that was okay. It was more exciting, because there was something natural going on. The throw's natural, but also gravity is completely natural, And so it came into play, not as an idea, but as a reality with the color, which was fun. I mean, it was fun because it looked okay. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. And you could keep going, if it doesn't look okay, and sometimes it would fall down and all the paint would be gone, you just go over it again. There's it's like painting found me. I didn't find painting. It came to me as something telling me I could do it. Music never came that way to me. And poetry didn't either, but poetry was closer. But painting somehow from earliest times. I painted pictures in high school and all that stuff, and I was even encouraged to paint, but I was going off to music school, so I didn't start. But it was always with me in my first years in Boston. I paint without even wanting to. I paint.
Be quiet.
Any other questions?
Hi. Larry, I heard someone recently talking about your philosophy of painting as your philosophy of painting as a sum of mistakes. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
There are certain things about painting on a rectangle, like 4 right angles, right? That's the surface. If you put anything in there, the 4 right angles compose it. So you can throw composition out the window, because everything is always composed within 4 right angles, right? So it leaves color free to do whatever it can do inside there. And so you have color making its own composition, because that's all that's left. And color and painting, paint and color, the same thing. It's light. That's the light in painting. That's where it comes from.
And what about this?
Yeah, what was it?
What about talking about mistake in painting?
Oh, yeah. Well, so at the first mark you put on the canvas looked great, honestly great, you'd leave it alone. Call it your masterpiece, right? But the first mark, and perhaps the 100th mark, it still doesn't look any fucking good, right? So they're all mistakes, right? Everything that went into a Cézanne, or anybody's damn painting, didn't get the way it is now without being a mistake. I mean, so the idea of making mistakes and not making mistakes is crazy. It doesn't exist in painting. It's always a mistake, right? Until you give up, until you, as Leonardo said, you just abandon the little sucker, you know? You know, on the church, on the steps of the church, like the movie, you know? Get rid of this kid, you know? You know, it's not an exercise of winning. It's an exercise not of quitting, but of hope. That's what it is. Yeah.
Hi, if you could...
I mean, Mondrian, excuse me, no. Mondrian was shifting the color in his paintings in order to paint them. And in order to do that, the black would have to get narrower or get bigger. The colors would have to be shaped differently to get the light going the way his instinct told him to do it. You see? And they all got cracked because he couldn't wait that long to change the damn thing and paint it over semi-wet or whatever oil paint, so they crack a bit, you know? You know, they still look great without glass, you know? No problem, you know? But color is the thing that changes in painting. Color changes everything. It is painting. Yeah. And what else is it? You know, it's visual, and it only appeals to our nervous systems as far as we know yet, you know? Nothing's ever come along to tell us what a bad painting is that's not a human. No, that's unpopular, but think about it before you dismiss it, you know?
Okay, I got him.
Hi, I'm curious to hear what are the voices in your head saying when you are painting? Like, are some of them kind or not kind? You know, what are the voices saying?
There are no voices. It's just, there's just color. There's just moving color from one place to another. It goes from here to there. Or it's all visual. It's not oral. I put it that way. It's an all visual medium. You know, it's not cooking, it's not smelling, it's not taste. It's light, whatever that is. Newton, yeah, he figured that out, or explained it a little bit better, you know, and where color is and stuff. Yeah, that's midway in one of the particle pictures.
So that
Before I would throw color on it, yeah.
that's the finished painting.
Yeah, that's Sinestra, yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Larry,
That's, you know, like the stuff you put underneath your carpets so they feel cushy. So, like, I always, when it was going to get to be pieces of stuff, you know, I don't want stuff that you can't roll. You know, so like the soft stuff is good. And once that gets saturated with paint, we've had paintings rolled up for 20, 25 years, you know, and they just pop right back up anyway. Yeah. So, you know, so I was able to do that and get away with it, you know, rather than making great big heavy things that you couldn't lift up. Yeah.
so Larry,
And it allowed me to draw more, to do what I always knew I couldn't do, which is why I did dots, you know? And it just freed me up to draw, right? Yeah, go.
So, just so you know, Frank has to go now.
Yes.
If you want, you can stay on stage and take a few more questions.
Why, sure.
Yeah?
It's up to the audience.
If you guys have, yeah. What about, you just mentioned about this kind of painting, how you were drawing first and then you painted. So,
yeah.
yes. So in this case, it's not just about color. You were drawing first, laying it out, like you were laying out the dot paintings.
Yeah, because
and then,
by then I realized I could do that.
You got it.
I was confident enough that I could just freehand draw. Yeah.
So
But that didn't finish the painting. Yeah.
So at first, when you were doing the dot paintings and the paintings that you were, like, let's say, after you saw Newman's work, Mondrian's work, you thought, I can paint, it seems simple. You drew, you did the layout.
Nothing was simple those days. That was the only thing I thought I could paint. Yeah. Yeah.
But then when you quit laying it out first, when you just started throwing the paint, there was no more using the brush.
Throwing the paint was at the beginning of the change. Getting rid of the grid where the elements would be placed, not in a symmetrical or asymmetrical order. I got rid of the order that, like, the random, that didn't look random. You see, the dot pictures didn't look ordered. They looked random, but they were made orderly. They had to be in a certain place because that was the rule that I made up for myself. And the only thing that could change that would be color. Yeah.
When I think about your work, I think a lot about music. The 60s dot paintings always actually reminded me of, sheet music, and the throw paintings. They kind of have like a musical quality to them. How do you feel about your work in relationship to your interest in music?
Paintings has similar. Music is improvising. That's what it is. When Beethoven hit Vienna, when he could get into the salons, what he would do was he'd improvise on the piano. And that's how he began to get a reputation. People were interested. That's how people got interested in him. He's a musician. Musicians are natural-born improvisers. One note follows another, one chord, and the people that could do it the best, like Haydn or Mozart, were the teachers. Or like took in the people who wanted to study with the best, that they thought was the best. So all your guys in the Romantic era, so-called, or before, they all studied with the great composer of their time, which was Haydn. Hi, yeah.
I'll just hold it.
So, music and painting have not similarities, have similar demands. If you can't improvise, how the fuck are you going to compose? Where are you going to go from the first note? Beethoven was a natural-born wizard, improviser, and listen to his piano sonatas. They all sound improvised, and believe me, they once were. And he'd pull them together. So improvisation. When I got away from the grid, it became more fun for me. Because I wasn't stuck. I could improvise. I could improvise with the color, and I could improvise with the shape that the color is going to go into. Right. Simple. The goal If you visualize the goal, it's not a goal. If you can't visualize your goal, then maybe there's a hope. If you got to worry about what the next fucking note is, you're not going to be Mozart. Simple. And painting is simple also in that way. I mean, it's simple to fail and it's simple to succeed.
I have a question.
There are no rules. It's not because it's great, there's no fucking rules. Gee whiz, what's so great about that, you know? You know? But there are no rules in art. How can there be? You know? There's only what works and doesn't work. And even that changes all the time, right? With popularity, with, you know, up, down, sideways, you know. What should I paint now? What do you mean, what should you paint? Why don't you try and paint and see what it does, you know? If you don't hit the next chord, you're not going to get to the 50th, you know?
Larry, there's a question for you.
Yeah, hi.
I have a question for you. You mentioned you had some relationship with Clement Greenberg.
Yeah.
So how did Greenberg affect
Well,
your How did Clement Greenberg affect you and your transition through your career as a painter?
He was somebody who'd tell you what he saw. Okay. If you showed him your work, he'd tell you he'd talk about it if he wanted to. And so that's what he did with people.
How did that affect you, though?
I listened. I mean, I heard him like anybody else. Yeah. And sometimes he liked it, sometimes he didn't, you know? It's difficult. You know, it's difficult to, you know, it's like, what are you getting at?
I'm just trying to figure out what was the layer, the intimate relationship you had with Clement Greenberg. Greenberg had a relationship with a lot of people.
But what do you mean by relationship?
Well, he was there.
What?
He was there. He was in the environment.
He'd tell you if he thought it was any good or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, okay.
So that's what I'm asking you. How did that affect you? I mean, I know he had...
How would it affect you if somebody didn't like the way you dressed?
I don't know.
You might not like it, but then you might change your dress anyway.
They could be correct, though. So what I'm asking...
We're all humans, you know?
I know, but what I'm asking you, he had a relationship with Nolan and a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how that affected your work. His theories, his ideas, his writings, his opinions.
Well, it affected my work in some ways that I began not to see or to feel, but it began to look like to me that he didn't know everything. Not that I did either. Not that I did either. And it wasn't a question of knowing. It's a question of what he liked. Might not be looking as good this year as it did last year. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that explains what you think is possible to explain. You see, it's even thinking that it's possible to pinpoint what you're trying to pinpoint. There isn't a place for it pinpoint it.
It's just curiosity.
You don't know what affects you. You really don't. As human beings, you really don't know that to the nth degree. You're always alone and swimming. You know, and like If one person out of 8 liked what you were doing, that would be enough. Not everybody. Look, when I stopped painting the regular dots, I had new people who wouldn't call me up anymore. You know, told me I was full of shit. Well, maybe I was, but fuck them too. You know? You know? And we all run into that kind of thing. You know? He had a good eye for some things, I guess. He did. He did. Which is what it takes. But the thing is that the son of a bitch could write.
That's right.
You see, that's the point. That's what Clement Greenberg was. Whether you agree with him or not, the writing is terrific.
That's right.
You know,
I agree.
and that was the core of Clement. You know. Yeah. He was a gifted writer.
So I think we're going to
Whether you like what he wrote or not, it's beautiful. You know, you can enjoy reading a medical book and you're never going to be close to being a doctor, you know, and still enjoy reading Freud. You better agree with Freud, who gives a damn, you know? Read it. It's a great read. You know, St. Thomas Aquinas is a great read. Whether you like his religion or not is beside the point. Man, he could write. You know, I mean, that's why we know about him. You know, who's my favorite? Augustine. Augustine, what a writer he was. You know, he could write. Wow. You know, he could write about things that, you know, the church couldn't explain. They needed somebody as gifted as Augustine to sell the religion. And he was the man. What writing, the confessions. Read those crazy things. They're wonderful. You know, if you can stick with it, because they're not easy to understand or even feel about. But they're very moving, not in a conventional sense, but in the sense of the grandeur he was capable of writing, create, you know, that just got created. You know.
Hey, Larry.
And you know, he was a black man. People don't know that. He was born and bred in Libya. St. Augustine was a black man. What was that?
Hi, you have very subtle transitions when you go from one color to the other color.
But you think they're subtle, that's terrific.
No. No, so they have a lot of mystery because you can't see where it ends and begins, but it works as a whole. Can you explain a little bit about the mystery of these subtle transitions? Because it's one shape merging into another, and it has a harmony and a harmonics.
I can't explain anything.
Oh.
Painting, the only thing I can tell you that I think is not an explanation is that painting is eye-arm coordination. That's what it is, eye-arm coordination. I once gave judged a show out in Ohio, and you know, and then they say, well, you got to pick the best one, the second best one, the third best one, the fourth best one, you know, to give people awards and stuff, and really pain in the neck to do that. And I did that, and when I chose the first prize, people just went like that. They didn't believe it, you know, and it turns out the man was a paraplegic. I had no idea about that. They were just the best paintings, period. Okay, try this one out for size. The church was going to like put Galileo in the torture chamber because his theory, his mathematics and theory was not fitting in with the way the church said the universe was organized. Everything had to go around us. We were the center of the universe. And when he got his telescope together, and people could look through his telescope, he said to himself, well, now I'm going to show them, about the dimensions of space, because you can see the mountains on the moon. Just look through the telescope. So I'm going to bring all these church people and look through the telescope. And they all did. And they all said, no, there's nothing there. It's a piece of cheese or something. They couldn't see the mountains, the valleys, the shadows. And I thought, my first thought of that was, that's ridiculous. These people are liars. And then I realized they weren't lying. They really couldn't see them without even realizing it, that they were there. That's a human thing. They couldn't see it because they weren't supposed to. Their vision was the way, and it was the way it was. And, Giordano de Bruno was locked up for 100 years or something for having the same breakthroughs that Galileo later on, got into print. So, it really says something about our species when you think about how come they weren't lying, and the mountains that you could see right through the telescope, they couldn't see that. Interesting, isn't it? It's long before brainwashing was a science. For crying out loud, it was in us.
We'll take the last question up, Fred.
Hi, how are you? I would just be curious to know if you could pick like 3 paintings or 3 artists that would be part of like your dream collection or that you could live with every day, which would they be?
What was the question?
Your three favorite paintings.
I can hear better now.
Your 3 favorite paintings.
Of what?
Or artists.
That you would want to like have in your home and look at every day.
Paintings that you'd want to live with. 3 of them.
Different people.
Yeah, not your own.
Many time period, any movement.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that.
Would you like to own
Any 3 paintings that I like.
Yeah.
Any 3 paintings that I like. And why 3?
All right, just say a few. All right. Any artist that you like, for example, Cézanne or.
What about?
Right, just give us an idea of like which paintings do you like? Which paintings? For example, you like Titian, Cézanne.
What you like today, you love tomorrow, or maybe you don't love tomorrow. So the emphasis on, there's no value system that you can like superimpose on art. There really isn't. There's nothing in the world that's non-objective to our nervous systems. Isn't blue as real as a shoe? How could it not be as real as a shoe? You can paint a shoe or you can paint blue. You just have to try and make a wonderful painting with it. Van Gogh could do it, and Barnett Newman could do it. Jackson Pollock could do it. Cézanne could do it. Mondrian could do it. Anything that's any good. You can't superimpose your human at-home parameters on art. Art doesn't give a damn about you. Never has. If it did, it would argue with us. My cat doesn't give a damn about painting. We've never met anything, I'm fond of saying this, we've never met anything as weird as we are. We are weird in the sense of we've never been able to measure ourselves against anything to judge ourselves by, except other factors when it comes to living together, when it comes to politics and all that stuff. They all get screwed up together, in a stew. But art doesn't give a shit about that. And what looks right and what doesn't look right, what looks right, if it's good propaganda, is good propaganda. Period. It's a tool. That's not art. That's all. It's not that art's any different or any better. It's just different. It does not perform any functions except to our nervous systems.
Well,
Our animalistic. We see, we smell, and we respond to light and sound. And we respond to words. Poetry isn't about anything, not if it's poetry. It wouldn't be called poetry. It would just be called words. But it's just like, go hit the piano, 4 keys, 88 keys, go on, do something with it, right? Most likely it's not going to be very good, or whatever, right? Sometimes when somebody has done it, this is the best thing you ever heard. There's no explaining that. We can't measure that. You can measure it by the means in which you think it's proper to bring up children, but that's not painting. That's not art. It'll get away from you anyway. If you try to superimpose things like that. I mean, believing that there's an answer in art, what kind of answer are you looking for? It's really, it's really free will.
Yeah. Okay, Larry. Yeah, thank you.